including
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon. This is Jacob New with your 12 o'clock news update on 1680 The Crow. With affordability being a major problem for many British Columbians, the debate around a government plan for a new museum is heating up. Both the BC Liberals and BC Greens shared their frustration about the project in question period, which would see the Royal BC Museum fully rebuilt at a price tag of over $750 million.
This Premier thinks that now is the time to blow $1 billion on a poorly thought out, vanity museum boondoggle.
Opposition leader Kevin Falcon has pledged that he would scrap the project if elected in 2024. Green Party member Adam Olsen also condemned the plan, saying it would continue to praise the colonial origins of the province.
It cannot be fixed by a bigger, brighter, shinier museum built with mass timber and wrapped in a Lekwungen-inspired veneer. A new shrine to house the systemic rot is not the solution.
The government's timeline would see the current museum close later this year and its replacement not open until 2030. Metro Vancouver gas prices are not slowing down, and the little relief drivers thought they would get is. Premier John Horgan had said he anticipated all drivers eligible would receive their ICBC rate rebate by the end of June, but now ICBC says a timeline of the end of July is more likely. The insurer says those with direct deposit info will get their rebate the soonest, and those paying with credit card will get it sometime this month to June. Those using any other method will get checks in the mail, but it's still yet to be seen whether they will make a dent in the cost of using a vehicle. Metro Vancouver drivers pay the highest price of gas in all of North America. The Vancouver Park Board has announced a new program to allow alcohol in parks for the summer. It comes after the board ran a successful pilot project last year. The program will permit the consumption of alcohol in designated areas in parks from June 3rd to October 16th. Park goers will be allowed to drink between the hours of 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. An artistic advisor for equity, diversity, and inclusivity says open dialogue is key to eliminate homophobia. Reporter Dennis Sinolu has more.
John Elaine from the Canadian National School of Ballet made these comments on May 17th, the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. Canada has made steps to become more inclusive, but the path to true acceptance is long and requires people to work together.
The more diverse, the more rich the conversation, the greater opportunity of choices and decisions that are going to allow multiple people to thrive.
With dialogue comes understanding. With understanding, fear and prejudice can start to disappear. Dennis Sinolu, 1680, The Crow.
We are now joined by reporter Dennis Sinolu. Dennis, how did May 17th become the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia?
Jacob, the day was started in 2004, and the date, May 17th, was chosen because May 17th, 1990, is when the World Health Organization officially declassified homosexuality as a mental illness.
And what countries acknowledge the day?
May 17th is now celebrated in more than 130 countries, including 37 where same-sex acts are illegal. It's received official recognition from many nations, and most United Nations agencies also mark the day with specific events.
Thank you, Dennis. The president of the Métis National Council says Queen Elizabeth should issue an apology for residential schools to contribute to the healing and survivors of families affected. Cassidy Caron says survivors told her an apology would be important as she is the leader of the Anglican Church, and the monarchy financially benefited from the displacement of Indigenous peoples.
They really do. The royals have a moral responsibility to, participate and contribute and advance reconciliation.
Caron will make the request to Prince Charles and Camilla during a reception at Rideau Hall tomorrow. The royal couple started their 3-day tour of Canada this morning in Newfoundland, set to partially focus on reconciliation. Advocates on the debate for vaping say the government's decision to clamp down on youth vaping is raising questions about how it plans to meet tobacco reduction targets. Harm reduction advocate and Ottawa vape store owner Ron Couchman says the government seemed to be in favor of encouraging people to switch from smoking to vaping, but now appears to have shifted away from that strategy. He says it means fewer options for smokers looking for healthier alternatives.
The last few bouts of legislation has really swung it another way to the point that it's serving as a disincentive to quit smoking.
The government is reviewing its legislation on tobacco and vaping this spring, but so far, focus has stayed on regulation to prevent youth vaping. The namesake son of an ousted dictator whose candidacy worried human rights and pro-democracy activists is the presumptive next president of the Philippines. As reporter Jay Zabanal explains, experts are expecting an increase in migration from the Philippines to Canada.
Leonora Angeles from the University of British Columbia admits she was disappointed but not surprised with the election result in the Philippines. She expects an increase in migration from the Philippines to Canada.
And I think that's also an indication that his administration anticipate that there won't be enough domestic employment opportunities.
Ongoing counts from the May 9 election show that Bongbong Marcos, the son of the former dictator, is set to win presidency and his allies are likely to capture most of the 300-seat House of Representatives and half of the 24-seat Senate that was up for election. Jay Zabanel, 1680, The Crow.
You can hear Jay's full interview with Leonora Angeles coming up at 12:20 on 1680 The Crow. Finland's parliament has overwhelmingly endorsed the government's bid to join NATO.
Lawmakers at the 200-seat parliament voted 188-8 to approve Finland seeking membership in the 30-member Western Military Alliance. The vote was considered a formality after leaders had announced the intention to join on Sunday. Lawmakers' approval wasn't necessarily required. However, it was felt to be important for the parliament to weigh in on the NATO bid, described by the Finnish head of state as historic. Finland is now expected to sign a formal application and file it to NATO headquarters in the coming days, together with Nordic neighbour Sweden. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The Calgary Stampede announced its food lineup for this year's event, and one item on the menu is drawing a lot of skepticism. Planners for the Stampede posted pictures and descriptions of new items for 2022, including KD's Soft Serve, craft dinner-flavored ice cream. The picture and thought of the delicacy attracted attention online. Other food items new to the event this year include mealworm hot dogs, a glazed donut grilled cheese, and bad breath lemonade, made with garlic and caramelized onions. And now, a weather update for Metro Vancouver. The sun remains out, but an overcast afternoon is in sight. Rain will begin late this evening with a high of 13 and a low of 8. Environment Canada has a special weather statement right now, warning a low-pressure system will make a major wind and rain to the region starting tonight. Rain will ease by tomorrow afternoon, but wind will not ease until later that day. We expect a high of 10 degrees. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned to a sports update with Parmveer Kang. I'm Jacob New, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, my name is Parmveer Kang and these are your sports updates at 12:10. Toronto Maple Leafs right winger Mitch Marner was the victim of a carjacking in Toronto on Monday night. Thankfully, Marner was unharmed in the carjacking that took place in the city's West End. Toronto police were called to the Queensway and Islington Avenue area around 7:45 last night. Police are now searching for 3 men armed with 2 handguns and 1 knife who drove off in Marner's black Range Rover. Toronto police have asked Marner and the Maple Leafs to not comment any further on the incident. The NHL's conference semifinals begin tonight with the Colorado Avalanche hosting the St. Louis Blues in Game 1. For the Blues, this is their first second-round appearance since winning the Stanley Cup in 2019. Colorado finished the year with the top record in the Western Conference and were the only team to sweep their first-round series. With that said, the Avalanche haven't made a conference finals appearance since 2002 and have lost in the second round in the past 3 seasons. Over to the Eastern Conference now with the Florida Panthers taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning in Game 1. The Panthers had the best record in the league this past season and will be hosting Tampa Bay tonight. The defending back-to-back champion Lightning are currently considered the underdogs in the series despite their championship pedigree. Boston Bruins forward Patrice Bergeron has been named as a finalist for the Selke Trophy for the 11th time in his career. If Bergeron was to win the Selke this season, it would be his 5th, which would break the record for most by any player in NHL history. He joins Alexander Barkov of the Florida Panthers and Elias Lindholm of the Calgary Flames as the finalists. The trophy is handed out to the forward who best excels in the defensive aspects of the game. The NBA's conference finals tip off tonight with the Miami Heat hosting the Boston Celtics in Game 1. Miami head coach Eric Spoelstra spoke on the challenge that Boston brings for his team.
Our guys love competition and love, being challenged and love taking on big challenges, and that's what we're facing. Boston, played as well as anybody in the entire league.
Miami's starting point guard Kyle Lowry will be out Game 1 with a lingering hamstring issue. Lowry did also miss Game 6 against the 76ers. The NBA Draft Lottery will also be taking place tonight before Game 1 of Miami vs. Boston. The Houston Rockets, Orlando Magic, and Detroit Pistons all have a 14% chance to win the lottery as they were the 3 worst teams this past season. The Detroit Pistons won the draft lottery last year and selected Cade Cunningham with the first pick in the draft. The top prospects in this year's draft include Duke's Paolo Banchero, Gonzaga's Chet Holmgren, and Auburn's Jabari Smith Jr. This morning, players from the Hamilton Tiger Cats gathered outside of Tim Hortons Field in a stand of solidarity. This comes after a CFL and CFL Players Association couldn't agree on terms to the collective bargaining agreement. The CBA expired this past weekend, and the union began its first labor strike since 1974. Fans were invited to come out to Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton, and they did. And the CFL-PA thanked everyone who came out and showed support for the players. The Toronto Blue Jays and Seattle Mariners will play the second game of their 3-game series tonight. The starting pitcher for Toronto tonight will be Jose Berrios, and for the Mariners, Logan Gilbert is going to get the start. The Blue Jays won the first game of the series 6-2 last night and are looking to go up 2-0 against Seattle. Toronto's manager, Charlie Montoya, spoke on the team's offense during the win.
Anyway, it was good to see our offense score that many runs today, but the timely hitting was big that we haven't had. That was good to see.
After last night's win, Toronto improved to 19 wins for the season and are currently 6th place in the American League. Tiger Woods will be competing at the PGA Championship this week in Oklahoma. This comes just 6 weeks after Woods competed at the Masters. This year's Masters was his first major tournament since a devastating accident that saw Woods nearly lose his leg. Woods said that walking around the Masters course in Augusta felt like climbing Mount Everest. Woods is looking forward to the flatter course in Oklahoma. My name is Parmveer Kang, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Hello, I'm Jay Zamanel, and you're listening to For the Record on 1680 The Crow. Last week, the Philippines had its presidential elections. Filipinos had 10 options, but I'll just name the top 5 options based on the initial results. There's Ping Lacson, a former police general turned politician; Isko Moreno, a former actor and incumbent City of Manila mayor; Manny Pacquiao, a boxing champ and incumbent senator; Leni Robredo, who is the Vice President of the Philippines, and Bongbong Marcos, who is a former senator and the son of the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos. Based on the partial and unofficial results, it looks like a landslide win for Bongbong Marcos, yes, the son of the former dictator. Now, to discuss the result and the campaign leading to the elections, we are joined by Professor Leonora Angeles from the University of British Columbia. She's an associate professor for the School of Community and Regional Planning and the Institute for Gender, Race, Sexuality, and Social Justice. Thank you for joining us today, Professor Angeles.
You're welcome, Jay. Good morning to all your listeners.
Thank you so much. I'll start with the questions. What was your reaction when you saw the initial results of the Philippine elections and the son of a former dictator was leading?
I was definitely sad and disappointed, but not surprised with regards to the results. We do know that President Duterte has a very high popularity approval rating among Filipinos going into the elections, and that magic of President Duterte rubbed off on presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos and, of course, his daughter, Sara Duterte, who run for the vice presidency.
And Marcos Jr. currently has 31 million votes based on the partial and unofficial results. Was Marcos Jr. really the best choice for these elections?
Of course, this is a biased answer.
Okay.
I have been very active here in Vancouver and also connecting with my friends and relatives during the campaign. And I was supporting the Leni Kiko team. It's no news there. I think and I believe that Vice President Leni Robredo and Senator Kiko Pangilinan are the best candidates we could have because of their track record, their competence in delivering a public service. They have also not been tainted with any allegations of corruption and have certainly proven a very strong track record in providing community-based basic services to the masses, to people who really came in droves through the Angat Buhay livelihood program. Despite her very minuscule budget, particularly during the pandemic, Vice President Leni Robredo was able to demonstrate what the Robredo administration had done in Naga City for 18 years. And this is really heartwarming for a lot of Filipinos who really saw Leni Robredo as an alternative to the traditional politics, patronage-based political culture that we have. She is not tied to any, big money campaign, to corporate donors, and certainly not to any political dynasty. So she was seen as a real threat to the establishment, and unfortunately, that kind of system will endure under another Marcos and Duterte administration for the next 6 years.
Okay, let me cut you there, Professor. You said a clean track record, no record of corruption, public service record is off the charts, but we have 31 million votes for Marcos, who was basically campaigning for unity. That was it. What went wrong?
Yes. There are really, I think, three victims in these elections. One is, of course, truth, democracy, and history. Truth, because we do know that there's a proliferation of fake news, disinformation, and lies in social media. This election is really won on the basis of the Marcos Duterte money, machinery, and social media. We do know that there's a lot of disinformation campaign to discredit Leni Robredo, and there's a lot of allegations of vote buying, disenfranchised voters, voting counting machines that did not work, as well as a very positive spin on the Marcos's track record and the history of the Philippines during martial law. So, in a democracy, as your listeners would know, really rely on a well-informed citizenry, educated people, educated about the different platforms of various political parties and candidates. And on that basis, they will make their choice, an informed decision, really, when they go to the polls. But it did not happen during this election. That's why truth and democracy are the first two victims in this elections. It's travesty, really, of democracy. And of course, thirdly, history. There's a lot of historical revisionism that happened long before the campaign. It's common knowledge that starting in 2016, when Bongbong Marcos lost to Leni Robredo in the vice presidential elections, the family hired Cambridge Analytica to refurbish the Marcos family name. So there's a lot of memes, TikTok videos, social media platforms accessed by Filipinos through Facebook. All this popular memes and videos and posts with regards to martial law and the Marcos years being the golden years of the in Philippine history. Of course, that's a big lie. We do know historians have well documented the plunder of the nation's wealth. We have international news covering the ill-gotten wealth of the Marcoses, the conviction of criminal offenses of the Marcos family, and of course the attempt on the part of all post-Marcos governments from Aquino I to Aquino II to recover some of this ill-gotten wealth stashed away in Swiss accounts and real estate around the world. And so there's so much record of that, and somehow because we're all in this echo chambers where we don't hear what the other side is saying, and we also don't have in the Philippines the facility, unless you're really tied to a monthly internet service. Much of the information you get is through Facebook. Facebook and Messenger automatically comes with your cellular phone service, and without additional resources, you cannot fact check, find out the sources of the news that's being fed by trolls into your daily news feed. And so that's the reason why we seem to have this historical amnesia as a people. Not only are we forgiving of dictators who plundered our nation's wealth. That's why there's hardly any revenue going to basic services.
Okay.
We also seem to be very forgetful.
Let me cut you there. Truth, democracy, and history are victims in these elections. But moving forward, what will happen to Filipinos? After the initial results came, there were people saying that businesses could pull out of the Philippines. What is the possibility of that happening?
Well, this is, I think, the test of democracy under this administration coming forward, I think that as a people, we remain optimistic and hopeful, and that's a very good sign. The Marcos Duterte team run on the platform of unity and basic reforms, livelihoods, jobs for the people, high increased wages, low price for basic commodities, particularly rice. And I think if the 31 million and the majority of the Filipino people really hold the Marcos Duterte administration accountable to make those promises come true, maybe, and my hope, as a researcher, as an educator, is to really see the Philippines move up our own economic development in Asia.
Okay, final question, Professor Angeles. Will this election, or do you see that the result of the election will cause an increase in migration to Canada from the Philippines?
Well, Canada has always been a major source of Filipino overseas worker as both temporary foreign workers as well as permanent residents. I suspect that Filipinos will garner a even bigger percentage of that 450,000 yearly target of the Canadian government in the next 3 years because of the low levels of migration that happened during the pandemic years. So yes, as Canada, of course, expands its attempt to get more refugees from Ukraine and Syria, Filipino workers will join these new migrants to Canada. Of course, we mainly come here. We're economic refugees in a sense, not political refugees, unlike Syrians and Ukrainians. But I do see an increase because over the years, even during the pandemic, where we saw a number of Filipino workers in other parts of the world go back to the Philippines, I think the statistics show that 75% of our workers had to be repatriated, but we didn't see that same pattern in Canada because many of the workers here have a pathway to permanent residence and citizenship. What's interesting is that Filipinos in Canada's level of remittances had actually increased, despite the overall downward trend in remittances from abroad. And this is, I think, an indication of the rather healthy, economic record of Canada on the one hand, and on the other hand, really the continued pressure on the part of Filipinos in Canada that we experience to send remittances to help our families during the pandemic difficult years.
Okay, Professor Angeles, thank you so much for joining us today. I really learned a lot, and it was an honor to chat with you.
You're most welcome, Jay. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. And everyone, this has been For the Record. I'm Jay Zabanel, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
In a city as starved for hockey content as Vancouver, fans and aspiring media have taken matters into their own hands. As myself and my colleague Marcus Polzer explain, the market for Canucks podcasts has grown exponentially over the last few years, and it's only getting bigger.
There are many media personalities out there in Vancouver. Now, what do they do exactly? Ryan Schaap has a podcast called Pucks on Net. Ryan has always been a fan of the team ever since he was a young child.
It was always on in the house. I was a fan as a kid. I played as a kid till first year Pee Wee, when I didn't hit puberty till I was a late bloomer, and I got checked quite hard early on the first day of contact training or contact tryouts, and that was about it for me. Just been a Canucks fan ever since my dad turned me in front of the TV and said, "That's Pavel Bure," and just really got into the Canucks and the West Coast Express years, and been following it, and really dove headfirst into following it and working in hockey and sports broadcasting once I got a bit older.
Ryan has been doing his podcast for just over 10 years now. Over that time, a lot has changed within Vancouver media. There has been a lot more representation and diversity among these podcasts. Ryan says he is happy that there has been change within the landscape of podcasting.
Yeah, and it's how many more times do people want to listen to a white guy with a beard and cargo shorts flap their gums about like in the same way? And it's like you have loudmouth, AM sports radio jocks, and like on our show, like there was never. I always wanted when we started the show, I wanted to have a female point of view on the show, because you just said it. There's always white dudes blabbing about sports, and that's great, and that'll appeal to some of the market, but it doesn't appeal to the entire fan base, and it doesn't represent the entire fan base.
Chief among those voices is Ryan's co-host, Arash Mamarzadeh. Since joining the show in 2020, Arash feels that the experience has given him a greater appreciation for the people who laid the groundwork.
I definitely have learned that there's a lot more to it than just sticking a mic in front of your face and, just being like, "Okay, we're recording, go." Anyone can do that. It really makes me appreciate people that take the time to come up with really interesting ideas and really very interesting perspectives on especially the Vancouver Canucks. I can think about going and listening to the podcast all the time with Jason and Jeff, and like it was this perfect balance of here's Jeff, whom is to me was like the stern dad whom could raise his voice, and here's Jason Botchford, who is the energy of any Middle Eastern mom ever, and would just be like, "We need her," like he would just be like, "Jeff, what are you doing?" And Jeff would just screaming into the mic, and then Jeff would be like, yeah, well, I understand. Yeah, that's pretty good. We got to do something, and then here's Botch just coming in and just screaming into the mic and dancing. And it was just this energy that you just felt that you wanted to be a part of.
Times have changed with how people are represented, even with how sports were covered back then. And Ryan says that is for the better.
And you forget that not too long ago, like at the time, were they trying to be problematic and offensive? No, but like the way sports was covered, 10, 15 years ago, it's vastly different now. And all of this change has come with for positive reasons and with positive results. And it's the world we're in now. And it's the way it's how it should be. And if not, there should be more representation and so much more open-mindedness, and just a different way than just like yelling about players being wimps and one way to play the game and one way to live your life.
The frustrating thing for me is like, man, anyone can gain 3,000 followers. Anyone can gain a platform, and anyone can grow this platform just by hitching their ride on not even like the craft of journalism, but the idea that someone can say, "Well, I'm a heel like in wrestling terminology, like I stir the pot. I'm the troublemaker. I'm the antagonist. Yeah. It's so much easier being a heel and to be that side than it is to be like a baby face, or not a baby face, but like someone just that isn't their entire job isn't to come out and say that everything sucks.
With the world changing with representation, there are a lot of other changes happening as well. Social media platforms like TikTok have skyrocketed over the past year, and now people's attention spans are a little bit shorter. This has made a lot of people start uploading their content to TikTok. With all of this, Line has had to adapt to this new age of social media.
You need to adapt. The idea of advertising and telling somebody to listen to an hour and a half of just audio, it was a lot easier. But as Instagram evolved and as TikTok entered, our attention spans are the shits, or our attention spans are, minute, and they're getting shorter and shorter. And I'm somebody that if a podcast is good or captivating or people entertaining, I'll want to listen to it. But if you're just going to send me a wave file and be like, listen to this, it's good, that's a hard sell.
As Ryan has a full-time job with the federal government in communications, he may not have all the time in the world to expand his podcast, but that isn't going to stop him from trying. Ryan hopes to grow his brand even more in the future.
With outside of winning a lot of Max and buying the Canucks radio rights and starting my own localized sports media empire, I want to just keep our show going, evolving and adapting with the climate and with whatever technology trends we have, and just being a voice that stands out in a market, covering this sport and covering this team. And I just want to be, not an influencer in which I'm selling you promo codes for Manscaped or for tees that flatten your belly, but I just I want to, as long as somebody listens to our show and we can make them entertained, make them laugh, or we give a good point or a good take, then that's all I want. When we stop doing that, when we're just yelling into the void and nobody's listening, then I'll pull the plug. But my pie-eyed dream is just to keep being an influence in this market, covering this team, and then just getting larger and getting to a point where you're able to conduct interviews with the Canucks or with professional players or with front office staff, and conduct the interviews that you want to conduct, because I know, hey, everybody that does, I'm good friends with Brendan Batchelor, who's radio for the Canucks, and he's great, and he asks the questions he asks, but man, I have 15 more questions I want to ask, and I want to conduct interviews my way. That's informative, that's entertaining, and it's engaging in a different way. And there's more than one way to cover sports, and that's my pie-eyed, blue-skied goal, is just to do it professionally and do it the way I want to do it. And it all starts with creating your show, creating opportunities, and branding and selling yourself.
I'm Marcus Pelzer, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
As COVID restrictions are slowly fading away, the Coquitlam Dodgeball League prepares for opening night of their 27th season, the first full season since COVID started.
When most people are looking for a recreational sports league to join, they think of hockey, basketball, or maybe soccer. However, this group of people have found their passion for dodgeball. The Coquitlam Dodgeball League, or CDL, was founded in 2007 and started with 16 teams. Now, it's made up of 40 teams with over 350 players. One player, Rob Gerard, has been playing in the CDL since it first began and is the only player to play every single year. 15 years later, he still plays, but is also the league director, which means he focuses on day-to-day tasks as well as launching every season. Rob doesn't make any money off the league. In fact, sometimes it's difficult to balance time between his job, family, and the CDL. He does this because he's passionate about the league and bringing people together.
I'm the only person that has played every season of the CDL. I've been a part of every single season, and I think I can count on one hand the amount of Wednesday nights that I've missed.
When asked how Rob got into dodgeball in his adult life, he said that it started on a whim.
And they were just three 20-something-year-old kids, and they got started on the Coquitlam Dodgeball League. And, I got a call saying, do you want to play dodgeball? And I thought that sounded like it could be something kind of fun to kill my time on a Wednesday night. I didn't realize that it was going to result in 15 years of work, but here we are.
Rob also explains the most difficult task of being the league director.
It's launching the season, no question. I'd say 90% of the work I do happens before the season starts. It's arranging gym rental contracts, ensuring that we have insurance. More recently, it's been making sure that we are in alignment with provincial health orders.
COVID added another layer of difficulty to Rob's job.
The pulse of the league wasn't a positive one at that time. People weren't too enthusiastic to expand their bubbles with people that they didn't really know very well.
We joined the CDL at Rochester Elementary in Coquitlam for their first opening night since the pandemic started. We were instantly met with warm welcomes and could feel the excitement and energy in the gym. Shortly after, league staff members jumped on stage to give everyone a reminder of the rules and regulations of the CDL.
Infraction happens at the end of the night, we will not be able to play the following week. Let's avoid that and not throw at each other's faces. Okay, cool. Let's play some dodgeball.
One of those rules and regulations is called a showdown.
Teams, there's a 10-second count. And if both players are still alive at the end of that 10-second count, we go to a showdown. And a showdown is one ball on each side of the middle, and each player gets two. And there are no lines. There's no line boundaries. So it's just an absolute free-for-all, winner takes all. I was part of the CDL's very first showdown, and it was against a 7-year-old girl. Somebody brought their daughter to watch, and she wanted to play a game, and I couldn't bring myself to throw as hard as I could at this girl, so I was like, okay, I'll go to a showdown. And once the showdown started, the second I started walking towards her, she just dropped the balls and ran towards her mom, and I felt awful. I felt so bad. This little girl was so intimidated.
After that, the games got underway, and we were lucky enough to catch up with league founder Darren Domingo. Darren tells us what inspired him to create the CDL.
Actually, the real reason that we started the league here was because there wasn't, we couldn't play on the day that they were holding it anymore in Vancouver, so we decided to play it on Wednesdays in Coquitlam, and we started our own thing.
This season brought one entirely new team to the league, the Crusaders. One member of the team had just moved from Ontario to British Columbia. He said that finding new friends has been his biggest challenge since the move. Hoping to change that, he joined the CDL to meet new people in his new home. The Coquitlam Dodgeball League is also an active participant in the local community. They both host and contribute to a variety of local events that benefit organizations such as Canada Cancer Society, SHARE, and the Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada. They even dedicated a special tournament to honor the passing of Amanda Todd, whose brother is a part of the league. Rob explains that emotional moment.
We hosted the first annual Amanda Todd Legacy Tournament, and we raised a bunch of money. Amanda's mom was there. She said some words, and then we played the tournament, and it ended pretty poetically, actually. Amanda's brother plays in our league, and his team although they were huge long shots, they ended up winning the entire thing.
The Coquitlam Dodgeball League looks to continue to make an impact on their community by bringing people together and hosting charity events. My name is Kyle Collis with Evan Tate, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
In a time when gas prices are higher than ever before and there's a constant demand for housing and development areas, Rusty Hookers, a shop that specializes in custom builds and hot rods, is facing the challenge of a lifetime.
My name is Steve Denman. I'm the owner and operator of Rusty Hookers Rats and Rods. We build custom cars for people. I spent most of my life as a carpenter, but always a builder. So this is a transition between building houses or whatever I built in construction to building cars. And I do it pretty much for fun, but fortunately it keeps the lights on.
Yeah, my name is Declan Sacre. I'm a car enthusiast. I was in the action sports industry for 27 years. Yeah, I wasn't before I started working on cars at Steve's shop. But I've learned what really goes into making a car great is about 15 beers a day.
What does the future of Rusty Hookers look like? We thought they would have to overcome the rise in gas when considering their cars, but realized that the real issue was inflation on cost of living.
But I think the future of Rusty Hookers is redefining the business to operate with the current situation around affordability via industrial space. So how can the business be re-engineered to work basically? I'm having trouble saying what I said. No, because it's not a new chapter. It may be right here. So far, we decided to charge more money. You got to charge more money. Are the customers willing to bear the cost of the overheads of the business being in North Vancouver, with the cost of real estate, with the cost of the property taxes, with the fact that this little location here is being taxed as if it's a 5-story apartment building. Yeah. And it's not, as you can see.
I don't know if they put gas sensors or anything like that, but I never been to back and forth.
Right, because how much gas you have coming out the exhaust pipe.
Yeah, but it's in a mixture. How much air goes through the carburetor, how much, what's the air fuel mixture, what's this, what's that, how many pounds per hour.
So you can do so much with the ear.
Steve knows that parts don't come cheap. The cost of detailing and making these custom cars is already high, but adding the hike in rental property and taxes makes things a lot harder.
Take 2 plugs out, put 2 new ones. Then go do your approvals
upstairs.
And then when you're done, you remove them. You put the old one back in. You keep the new one in your pocket. And then I look at them and say, well, okay, we're doing good.
Affordability of the physical space that I have to have to not only make my dream come true, which is working on old cars just for fun. It's making my client's dream come true, is to have a place where they can go to get that done that is within their budget to make their dream happen. So both the dreams work off of each other. My dream is to have this shop. Their dream is to have that car. But if I can't afford the shop, they can't afford the car. So if I'm adding another 20 or 30% to my...
From the broadcast center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Kiara Collins, and this is your news and sports updates to 1 o'clock with 1680 The Crow. Prince Charles and his wife Camilla arrived in St. John's for their 3-day tour. Prince Charles spoke highly of Canada, saying Canada has always taken its obligations as a global citizen seriously and is in a spectacular way.
To be a safe haven to those in need, a respected leader on the world stage, a much-needed voice in advocating for a greener and more sustainable future, and in an era where the global institutions of democracy look distressingly fragile, a model of determination and humanity.
Prince Charles also referred to Canada's commitment to reconciliation with its Indigenous people, saying coming to terms with country's darkest aspects begins with listening. Trevally Mining Corporation, a Vancouver-based company, says none of the 8 workers missing since the Percoa mine in Burkina Faso that flooded a month ago were able to reach an underground refuge chamber. Since the mine was flooded on April 16th due to severe rains in the area, no communication with the 8 missing workers has been established. Workers are working 24 hours a day to dewater the mine until they reach the refuge 570 meters below ground, but found it intact with no one inside. The corporation says they will continue the search efforts to find their colleagues and are in close contacts with the missing workers' families. Wedding photographers are frustrated with Surrey's new permit to shoot in popular parks. Photographers and their clients will have to apply for a free permit from the city starting this month if they want to shoot photos at Elgin Heritage Park. The permit is a part of a pilot initiative to provide a layer of accountability to protect the city's irreplaceable assets. The issue for photographers and clients is the delayed response in the city to receive the permit and is sometimes leaving them with no place to go.
It is becoming quite frustrating for us photographers because it is slowing our business down and we are kind of limited in space that we're using.
Evil will not win in America, according to U.S. President Joe Biden. He went to Buffalo, New York, to express his support for the community after 10 people were killed in a racially motivated attack on black people. He believes that the replacement theory, which inspired the shooter, has radicalized too many Americans.
And the falsely believing that they will be replaced, that's the word, replaced by the other, by people who don't look like them, and who are therefore in a perverse ideology that they possess and being fed lesser beings.
Biden also paid tribute to each of the people who lost their lives, describing them as a modeled citizen and a beacon of their community. Now for sports, the Vancouver Whitecaps have just announced a League One women's team. The team will be led by Katie Kohler, the head coach of the Whitecaps FC Girls Elite and National Development Center. The team will participate in the very first season of League One BC. Ken Woods Field will host the home opener Sunday, May 22nd at 10 a.m. Mitch Marner, the right winger for the Toronto Maple Leafs, was a victim of a carjacking in Toronto on Monday night. Marner was blessed to be unharmed in the carjacking in the city's West End around 7:45 last night. Toronto police were called to the scene. 3 men armed with 2 handguns and 1 knife drove away in Marner's black Range Rover, police say. Marner and the Maple Leafs have been asked by Toronto police to not comment on any further incidents. The NHL's conference semifinals begin tonight with the Colorado Avalanche hosting the St. Louis Blues in Game 1. For the Blues, this is their first second-round appearance since winning the Stanley Cup in 2019. Also, the Tampa Bay Lightning facing the Florida Panthers in the Eastern Conference. The Panthers have the best record in the league this past season and will be hosting Tampa Bay tonight. Defending the back-to-back champions, the Lightning are currently considered the underdogs this season, despite the champions' experience. experiences. Currently, Burnaby is 14 degrees, mostly cloudy with some sun, but there may be some light showers starting within the hour. The wind warning that was issued yesterday afternoon is still in effect for Burnaby. Tonight, we are expecting high winds that will last until late Wednesday night. I'm Kiara Collins, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.